Hey everybody, David the AI Guide. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And a big thank you to our subscribers. So today we're going to talk about neuroscience. And neuroscience is the study of the brain and the nervous system, which obviously controls all your bodily functions and more, principally your state of mind, which determines your outcome in life, but we're not going to talk about that today. But neuroscience is one of many areas that will see true breakthroughs in the 2020s, this decade. And there's a bunch of companies we're going to talk about right now who are pursuing breakthroughs in neuroscience using AI. So let's talk about some of those companies. So first, with curing disease, two companies that are working on stimulating neurons, Kernel and Flow Neuroscience, are using the stimulation of neurons to treat depression and Alzheimer's. So where does AI come into that? Well, AI helps look at all the data from these tools that they're using and helps analyze that data and look for better and better perfection of these treatments. Because the data coming out of all of these things we're about to talk about is so large that a human cannot process all of it. So all of this stuff uses AI to process the data and to improve outcomes. Next, in the area of mobility, two companies, one called Synchron and one called BrainCo, are using AI and stimulation to treat paralysis. So this is where we're going to see a very, very visible breakthrough, and I will guess that it will happen before 2030, where paralysis will be fixed for the most part, because as stimulation of the brain and nervous system is occurring by all of these different players and many, many more, so much data gets compiled that over a little bit of time, an AI can start to figure out, how do I fix paralysis? And this is exactly what we need to do to fix it. Synchron and BrainCo are using AI-driven stimulation to treat paralysis to improve mobility in these patients. This will be huge. I mean, this is almost on the level of curing cancer, because if you can treat people who have lost use of one or more of their limbs, in addition to accidents and injury, we're talking about stroke victims here. So, because stroke victims can become paralyzed, this is on the class of curing cancer. It's that big. More immediately, companies are helping to help people sleep better. And one of those is Dream. And they're using sounds through bone stimulation, very low level sounds, to help people sleep better and to reduce stress levels better. There's going to be a lot of companies working on sleep. Why? Because a lot of people sleep very poorly these days. And why is that? Because we're all overstimulated by constantly being glued to TVs, computers, and cell phones. This is overstimulation for the mind if we don't have limits, personal limits on that activity. And it causes sleep problems. So a lot of companies like Dream are going to be working on improving sleep. Next, for women, there's a company called Ava, which is working on a better ovulation tracker. Now, this is been going on for women for many, many years. For those of you who are Catholic, you know about this from the time your mother told you about it. But basically, in the past, it was done by temperature and counting days and stuff like this. But now, companies like Ava are using technology with sensors and AI to track the ovulation cycle. And this is very helpful to women because women's biochemistry changes a great deal through their ovulation cycle. And being more aware of where they are in their cycle will help women cope with these changes that come every month. Next, stress. Stress is killer in today's world. Stress is everywhere. Stress is through the constant barrage and overload of information. This goes back to sleep problems, too much news, too many computers, too many TVs, too many cell phones, way too much stimulation. Stress is a big one. And companies like Think, THYNC, have a pod that goes on the back of your neck, and it emits sounds that helps relax you and de-stress you. So this may be very, very helpful to all of us who tend to be overstressed at times in the modern world. The old world before technology had its stresses too, like how am I going to eat? How am I going to take care of my family? How am I going to survive the next year? Stuff like that. But the stress now is more mental and unrelenting. And then finally, in the area of controlling computers, we've talked about this before, but two examples of companies that are working on controlling computers merely through thought: Neurable and Neurolink, which is Elon Musk's company that we've already talked about before. So I've said many times, and it's coming sooner rather than later, that keyboards will disappear. People will either be speaking to their computers and getting output and feedback in real time, like Siri and Alexa and stuff like that, but way more sophisticated, much more like Jarvis. And but Neurolink and Neurable are brain implants that go far beyond spoken instructions to a computer, in the sense that you can think something and it happens. That is going to be, if someone were to come from 1950 and see that in 2050, or which it'll probably be way before that, or whenever this happens, they would think that they had landed on an alien planet and would freak out completely. That's how big a change this technology will be. And a prime example of how the AI-driven changes coming through these companies and many, many others and many, many other fields besides neuroscience are going to transform the world so profoundly that within 50 years from now, by 2070, the world would be unrecognizable to someone from less than 100 years before, let's say, the 1990s, right before the turn of the millennium. The speed and pace of change is going to be incomprehensible. And that's why I started the AI Guide. That's why our team is shortly going to be providing resources for you to prepare for a change, the magnitude and speed of which humanity has never seen before in its existence. So thank you. Take care. Talk to you next time. For jobs, many of these companies I just talked about are hiring. Flow, Brainco, I believe, is hiring. Ava's hiring. Neurable is hiring. Unlimited job opportunities in tech fields using AI. Unlimited. Thanks. Take care.